All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AIBS annual council meeting of the IDEA conference. This meeting includes members of societies and other like-minded organizations. I'll introduce myself. I'm James Verdier, the senior editor of AIBS's journal Bioscience, but I think I know most of the folks here. We have some ground rules that you just saw, and they'll be familiar, and we'll also post those in the chat so that you can take a longer look if you'd like to. Before we get formally started, AIBS would like to follow in the tradition of our member society, SACNAS, whose recent National Diversity and STEM conference we'll be discussing today. So let's start by having a moment of centering. Before we begin our work here today, let's take a moment to center our hearts, thoughts, minds, and action on our time together today. IDEA cannot be realized without acknowledging the work and sacrifices of those who have given their lives to this work. We acknowledge you and give gratitude to you for your commitment. All right, and now with no further ado, I'm very happy to hand the conference over to AIBS's president, Judith Skog, for some introductory remarks. Judy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, and welcome to the AIBS fall meeting for scientific societies. I'll just make a couple of brief comments. This year has been a time for AIBS to become familiar with activities and environments created by minority serving societies, and for the staff and members to gain a deeper understanding of what these societies provide for their members, especially in creating a safe place for acceptance, inclusion, and a community of peers. There are many lessons to be learned from these societies, and we hope to all gain from a better understanding of the needs of our colleagues, enabling us to appreciate the diversity, become more inclusive and accepting, and provide more support for all. I think especially as we move forward into the next few years, this acceptance and understanding will be more critical than ever. So thank you for coming and enjoy your time with us.
Great. Thank you very much, Judy. And right now I'd like to pass the microphone over to DeJoy Crosland, who's going to talk a little bit more about what we'll be discussing today. DeJoy?
Well, thank you, James. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces. Welcome to what we're calling the 2024 IDEA Conference, the MSS IDEA, the power of community in science. For those of you who I have not met officially, I am Dr. DeJoy Crosland, the Chief Operations and Diversity Officer here at AIBS. I have been asked to take just a few moments to frame why we are here and what we plan to accomplish today. Diane is going to drop a link to our inclusivity statement in the chat. This statement has been the guiding factor in all of our work at AIBS. So when you get a moment, please do read through that statement. And since you'll already be on the IDEA webpage, take some time to look through our webpage and look at some of the resources we have on our IDEA page. So why are we here today? I promise to be very brief so we can get into our discussion. Since the years are flying by really fast, 2021, I believe, the IDEA Conference, which is a short term for enabling scientific societies to support inclusive, diverse, equitable, accepting, and accessible scientific environments. The conference has brought together like-minded societies and organizations to discuss barriers and, most importantly, solutions to creating IDEA environments. One of the major barriers identified from these meetings was too little acceptance of multiple cultures and perspectives. So in an attempt to determine ways to overcome this barrier, our focus this year has been the Minority Serving Societies IDEA environment. Minority serving societies and affinity groups have created a very unique ecosystem of acceptance and inclusion for STEM scientists. These organizations have created a safe space and a community for scientists from marginalized backgrounds who may not often have peers of the same racial and ethnic backgrounds or even peers of the same gender identity in their professional environment. A survey of our member organizations noted interest in understanding the unique environments that minority serving societies and affinity groups have created for minoritized scientists. In an effort for us to gain a deeper understanding of that ecosystem, AIBS attended the Society for Advancement of Chicanos, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Sciences National Diversity and STEM Conference, also known as the SACNAS NDiSTEM Conference. It was held from October 31st through November 2nd in Phoenix, Arizona. So today we wanted to bring everyone together, AIBS board staff and like-minded organizations, to discuss lessons learned and strategies for organizations to use when trying to create their own idea environments. It is our hope that this is just an initial conversation and that it provides some insight into the power of community in science, and more importantly, plants a seed for collaboration, innovation, and action. So we will begin our conversation today with two very amazing AIBS board members and SACNAS elders, Drs. Lydia Villa-Komarov and Clifton Poudry. They both serve not only as AIBS board members, but as elders in the SACNAS community, and have been very instrumental in supporting SACNAS and its growth and sustainability. So welcome, Lydia and Cliff. It was so nice to see you in person a few weeks ago. We want to give you a few moments to just discuss your SACNAS history, to give us some background, tell us how and why SACNAS was founded, what this community has meant to each of you throughout the years, and how it feels to return to SACNAS each year and get kind of rejuvenated. So Lydia, I'll be quiet and give you the floor.
Thank you, DeJoy. It's a pleasure to be here, as always. I've been a member of SACNAS since 1973. I was at the first meeting where it was founded, where there were, I think, about 20 people. It included the 17 people who had gotten together to talk about why there were so few Mexican Americans in particular, and Native Americans even more so, in any kind of science fields. These people were mostly male. They were mathematicians, biologists, physicists. We were fortunate that there was a person in the DOE and another in NSF who, after we had discussed and talked about what we should do, we decided that perhaps the best thing we could do was bring undergraduates together and have them listen to us, to let them know that they too, that people who look like them were scientists and they could be too. We learned a lot. Those 17 individuals who had met earlier were primarily young men who had just been hired as assistant professors. And they wanted to support each other because in that time, I suspect it happens now as well, they felt that they had been hired as prizes, basically, but that their expectations for tenure were fairly low. And so that's what their purpose was when they first began to meet and realize that they were it. That was pretty much all of the Mexican American and Native Americans that had PhDs in the United States at that time. So we decided on the meeting, our two friends at NSF and DOE got us funding to do that. We could fly students to wherever we were. Our first meetings were in Albuquerque in the basement of the Holiday Inn, and faculty outnumbered students. As we expanded, we learned that our students didn't know how to attend meetings. So for example, when we had a meeting a few years later, and it may be the first one Cliff was at, we flew our students into Phoenix, I think, no, it was Tucson. And half of the students immediately set off for Las Vegas, and that's the last we saw them until they flew home. So we learned that we would give them half a ticket. They had to, we made up a spreadsheet. They had to see so many sessions. They had to see so many exhibitors because these were universities who were looking for students. And that worked very well. And it continued so that the meetings balanced between scientists, and helping students understand what it took to be successful were very important. From the day we began a discussion of exactly what SACNAS would do. Did we really mean only Mexican American and Native Americans? And I think from that very beginning, there were people there who were Hispanics, indigenous peoples from, say, Hawaii and other places in the United States, Guam, were not initially included, Filipinos, but they came. And over time, it has become the most diverse society for students and faculty in the country. And it includes, I think, currently about 10–15% Black individuals as well. So we are quite diverse, and I think that's an important lesson, is that there can be a focus on a particular population which has been historically disadvantaged, but we have to include others who wish to be either allies or who are interested in mixing with people who, like them, have been excluded, and it's been very successful. And I'll turn it over to Cliff now by saying that he's attended many more meetings than I have over these last many years. We've both served as officers in the society, and we go back because it truly is a unique meeting. We see friends. There is a warmth, a feeling of belonging. We start with a Native American blessing. We have a pachanga, a Mexican dance at the end. And in between that, there's a indigenous marketplace as well. So we try very hard to maintain the cultural connections of these students and faculty, as well as teach them what rigorous science looks like. Cliff.
Thanks, Lydia. So I actually became aware of the program from one of my colleagues, and I probably started attending in about its 5th year because of my positions and other things. I was able to attend for many years. So I've attended probably 45 meetings over the years. One of the things I'd like to let you know is that for me, going to the meeting was very colleague-oriented versus student-oriented. That's, so my interest, what I got out of it. I actually went to the SACNAS each year to get renewed, to get rejuvenated. And this was through conversations with peers, some that had similar anxieties that I did. So it was a lot of mutual support of each other. So I wasn't going for my particular science, necessarily presenting my material or whatever. I did learn quite a bit of other science because I've listened to colleagues in math and physics and chemistry and other kinds of areas. And some of these were areas that I wouldn't normally come in contact with. At that time, I only knew 5 American Indian scientists of any kind, and I usually met up with 3 or 4 of them at that particular meeting. So well, actually there weren't very many then either, but one of the biggest benefits was being able to make connections. So at least for me, part of the benefit of going to the meeting was for myself, being rejuvenated, reinforcing a purpose. SACNAS, my colleagues then, was a very service-oriented cohort of colleagues. How do we help each other? And so it's more service-oriented rather than me-oriented, what contacts do I need to get for my science? And then as we were, I think, how do we help each other? So how do we help the next generation? And that's, we saw more as the conference grew and more student participants came each year. And we shared both our personal and professional experiences with them. And it was very, for me, very, very reinforcing and an opportunity for service in ways that within the university or even in the government that I didn't usually have. So that's what has kept me going back year after year.
Great. Thank you very much, Lydia and Cliff. It's fascinating to hear the perspectives of people who've been to many, many, many more conferences than the one that I've attended. I think next we're going to jump into some conference highlights from the AIBS staff who were able to attend. I think we all roundly had a wonderful time, but Scott, why don't you begin by sharing a highlight?
Sure. Thanks, James. And thank you to everyone who's attending today. Really appreciate it. Someone had asked about the SACNAS attendance and the numbers for the conference in 2024, and I put those in the chat if you're interested. Over 50, I believe it was close to 5,500 attendees, 930 first-time attendees, and all of us that joined from AIBS were first-time attendees. For me, it was a wonderful opportunity, a growth opportunity. I want to thank the AIBS Board of Directors for supporting us attending that conference, and want to also thank my colleagues that joined me there. We don't see each other enough, and because we're all telecommuting and we're all spread out all over the country, and so it's wonderful to be together. And Lydia and Cliff, it was wonderful to be able to spend some time with you in person. So thank you for that as well. When I think, on the plane home, I was writing down, okay, how would I describe my experience at the meeting, and what words come to my mind? And I wrote down several, and then tried to tie those words into one of the sessions that I attended. So what I wrote was, I found a wonderful holistic approach to solving complex scientific problems, transparency, authenticity, trust, resiliency, mentoring, empowering, accessibility, growth, collaboration, respect, equality, inclusive, safe, ceremonial, and celebratory. And I was very fortunate on the second day of the conference on November 1st to attend a session focused on the National Cancer Institute funded partnership for Native American cancer prevention. This is a collaboration with the University of Arizona Cancer Center and Northern Arizona University. And it's focused on research working with Native communities within Arizona on health disparities. So there were 3 projects that were presented. I'm going to focus on the third. But the 3 were emerging role of adipobium bacteria in human papillomavirus, persistence and progression to cervical cancer among Hispanic and Native American women in Arizona. The second was exploring Native American cervical cancer disparities through the lens of the vaginal microbiome. And the third was optimizing a program called My Health, My Choice, which is developed to promote breast and cervical cancer care for Native American women with disabilities. And the co-leaders for that particular session were Julie Armand, who's family and community medicine, and Heather Williamson at College of Health and Human Services at Northern Arizona University. So this community engagement project is working in partnership with 2 Native American serving groups, the Hopi Cancer Support Services and Tucson Indian Center. Both groups have co-created the resource for the My Health, My Choice program, which is specifically designed to empower individuals, particularly those with limited access to healthcare or facing health disparities, to make informed decisions about their health by providing education and support regarding their healthcare choices. And it emphasizes that individuals have agency over their own health decisions. So both these groups that are working have immediate access to the educational materials, also have co-ownership of the patient navigation resources developed. In addition, the project's community advisory board includes members who work directly to address the health and wellness of Native American women with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities in Arizona. So the project's community advisory board members are also regularly involved in decisions regarding the project and are able to share project-specific resources through their networks. And this amazing team that was working together and presenting these sessions included Naomi Lee, who's a chemist, virologist, Jenny Ingram, a chemist, environmental chemist, Nicole Jimenez, microbiologist, immunologist, Julie Arman, who's a sociocultural medical anthropologist, Daryl Joseph, who is focused on special education, Dylan Becker, who was managing data collection, and Selena Garza, who's was a study activation manager, public health specialist, focusing on clinical trials. So what really centered me and resonated with me, and what I really appreciated, was them creating this best practice, culturally informed collection protocol for sampling HPV. And it was described as two-eyed seeing, using two lenses, both the academic institutions' Western science lens and indigenous communities lens, to gain better perspective to solve a research problem. One of the most important aspects of the project was the use of talking circles. And super important always, but particularly when addressing sensitive topics such as women's health, honoring and respecting cultural practices. It was an invaluable method for fostering open dialogue, trust, and community involvement. This traditional practice aligns with the values of many indigenous communities, emphasizing respect, equality, and the collective sharing of experiences. By inviting community leaders, tribal elders to participate in structured discussions, the project creates a culturally safe space that acknowledges the sacredness of women's health. And so that bit, to me, it just spoke to me. I appreciated learning about it. And again, it kind of hit all the key words that were important to me, that I learned, that everything that I felt leaving the conference was kind of embodied in that session. And happy to report there was an undergraduate student who was responsible for data collection for this particular work. And it was wonderful to see this student being elevated. He did a wonderful job presenting, very respectful, very humble. It was very clear that he was, it was a very important piece, the data collection piece for this work, of course. And he's now just started his PhD program at the University of Montana. So that was really wonderful just to see that kind of trajectory as well. So I'll be quiet now. That's much more than 2 minutes, and then I'll pass it on back to James.
Thank you very much, Scott. And that resonated a lot with me. I was very lucky to sit in on the same session. Why don't we go next to Jyotsna?
All right. Hi, everybody. Jyotsna Pandey, and I'm the Community Programs Director for AIBS. I want to echo everything that people have said so far, and what Scott said about really appreciating this opportunity to attend this wonderful meeting and learn so much and meet some really amazing students and scientists. It was refreshing to see a lot of young voices being amplified at the various sessions. I attended this NOAA session organized by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration that combined issues of climate resilience, environmental justice, and equity, where one of the speakers was a young research fellow, a PhD candidate in earth and environmental sciences in New York, studying sustainability in urban environments. So he talked about the research on microfibers and his work on sort of cross-pollinating science and fashion, essentially approaching science in new ways, blending in art, and also the importance of participatory science and environmental justice. So it was a really fresh perspective, something that you don't really hear every day at a scientific conference, shared in a really safe environment without judgment, and a lot of support and encouragement, from the people sitting in the room. So it was really heartwarming to see, students kind of sharing their non-conventional perspectives with confidence, and the reinforcement and support that they were receiving from other attendees in the room. And that was it really brought that feeling of community into the room. Another sort of highlight for me was, there was hunger for career advice and mentorship. I attended one of the sessions, one of the many sections of the Conversations with Scientists lunch. So I happened to attend the ecology session, which was attended by a lot of undergraduate students who were wrestling with questions about whether they should pursue a master's or a PhD or go to grad school at all. They had questions about transitioning to non-academic careers particularly, and were looking for guidance about sort of non-traditional career paths. So I ended up on a table where it was all undergraduate students, but for me and one PhD student, and every one of them were really interested in and had so many questions about my career path and how do you get into science policy and so forth. So it was a good conversation, and I particularly really liked it. And a lot of the students I have already reached out to me sort of after the meeting with more questions and asking about resources. So that was great. And that brings me to my sort of final highlight, which was, in addition to younger voices, we heard a lot of positive, reinforcing stories from experienced leaders and elders, including, Cliff and Lydia at the meeting. I attended a session on pathways to high-profile positions where a lot of wisdom and advice was shared by people who are in or have served in strong leadership positions in academia, government, industry. Lots of great insights and strategies and experiences were shared by the panelists, and you could tell from, the room was packed, people were standing, there were a lot of questions, specific questions about, trying to get into leadership positions and, all the connotations associated with that. So it was a really great session. And I'll kind of stop there. I don't want to say too much, but I'm sure there will be other things, other opportunities to share more. But I do want to mention that I really did enjoy all the sort of cultural programs and celebrations, the dances that got us started prior to the plenaries that had themes of nature and conservation weaved in. So I really loved that, and I really enjoyed the marketplace too. I ended up getting a few lovely souvenirs for myself and for people close to me. So it was great. With that, I will hand it back to James.
Thank you very much, Jyotsna. Why don't we go to Dayjoy now for a highlight or two?
Sure. I feel like we would all say similar things with respect to our highlights, so I'll try to say something a little different. I had several highlights. One kind of overarching highlight for me was actually just being in a space where science plus personal development plus culture were equal. To me, the conference was a very unique space where science was there and was a focus, but it was not the only focus. And that resonates a lot considering what Cliff said about kind of why he's been going. The conference had very unique professional development sessions that focused on science, but also those that focused on unique aspects of community, stories of success and advice on how to be successful. And then there was also equal support and space given to cultural activities. So they highlighted cultural activities, highlighted the indigenous community in Arizona, and most importantly, kind of celebrated indigenous, Latino, and even African American scientists. So being a minoritized scientist and being able to be in a place where for once you're in community and you're actually the majority was a very wonderful and even for lack of a better word, kind of like a spiritual space to be able to be in a space where there were those who were very much like you, who also just happened to be scientists, was actually the biggest highlight for me. However, if I had to pick one session, a session that resonated with me was one called the PhD Playlist. So it was called the PhD Playlist. I think the subtext was applying traditional knowledge to a modern world. So it was a very kind of unique take that was put together by a couple of bachelor's level students and their advisor. So this session was kind of a very interactive session that talked about how to use your culture and your learned experiences to frame your research. So they broke you off and you had to do kind of a lot of thinking and talking about how do you honor the land that you work on? How do you define who you are in the universe? How do you put a name to your own roots? And then how do you take all of that information to identify like your artistic or creative self? And how do you use that to now grow your science, right? So it was a very unique take on yourself and how you integrate your full self into science. And it took some time to kind of walk through how those students did that. And I'm assuming that it was done within a class. So it talked through how they linked their Indigenous life through songs as a way to be able to deal with not only their trauma, but their kind of lived experiences, and how to use that music to get through tough times, and most importantly, as an outlet for their creativity. So if I had to pick one thing, that would be it. And then I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy. And one thing I did just want to mention, because none of us have mentioned it yet, it wasn't a session, but I had a really wonderful time walking around the expo hall and interacting with the students who were, sharing their posters and discussing them. I think that it's easy to forget, as we move into, later stages of our careers, that's a very scary thing for, someone who is 19, 20 years old to do oftentimes. And, as someone who's interested in science communication, it was really exciting for me to see people, presenting their research in such an incredibly nurturing and collaborative and community centering environment. I had a lot of chats with a lot of, students, and they were roundly encouraging each other. And, I won't do injustice to their great science by trying to, describe it, but there was just an abundance of really fascinating presentations there, and I was really fortunate to be able to learn. Now let's go ahead and chat about some potential lessons learned, and some of the things that we took away, and some of the things that kind of informed our understanding about the MSS environment, and how we might eventually bring that into our own majority serving societies. Scott, you turned your mic off, or you turned your mute off, so you're going to go first.
Okay. Well, in terms of, I just kept thinking it was, such a wonderful experience for me, as, the executive officer of AIBS, to attend SACNAS and just be able to absorb that environment. And I think it would be beneficial for anyone that's in a leadership role at any scientific society to attend SACNAS, to invest the time and to attend, to see what it's all about, to be able to meet with so many wonderful students in this transdisciplinary environment. And it's just such a wonderful opportunity to learn what a truly healthy conference and environment is all about, and take back these pieces and back to your own society, and do as much as you can to ingrain them into the governance documents of your organization. That's priority one, I think. For me, that's would be my number one recommendation, and to give equal voice and these diverse perspectives, to make sure that we are all working tirelessly to continue to diversify our board in every way, and to amplify the voices of those that historically have not been amplified. I think that's my one thing I want to share here.
No, that certainly resonates with my thinking as well. Jyotsna?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Scott just said. For me, the sort of the words that really defined the conference for me were, number one, resilience. I think there was a lot of talk of resilience. Of course, the community, as we've said, so our community was at ran through everything that was kind of presented and showcased at the conference, but resilience, adaptability, as well as mentorship, trust, these were the sort of the words that or themes that kept coming up for many, if not all the sessions that I attended. And notably, there was a lot of sharing of stories, experiences, both successes and vulnerabilities and failures, and how people overcame those failures and obstacles. And there was an underlying optimism in all of it. There was talk of, okay, some failures and obstacles and things like that, but in the end, all the stories kind of offered optimism and hope. So, uh, that's the sort of kind of feeling I walked away from. And, this has been emphasized many times, but there was a clear presence and feeling of community, as I mentioned, that's not found in other meetings. And science, the scientific endeavor, scientists were, of course, central to everything, but the intentional focus on community, mentorship, belongingness in all of the sessions made the conference really unique and effective in my view. And it really seemed to give students a lot of confidence. You don't see students with this much confidence regularly. And that's the stuff that I really walked away thinking. And this is, something really worth trying to replicate at other meetings.
No, absolutely agreed. And DeJoy?
So when I thought about this, I went back to the conversations with scientists. So much like Joyce and I participated in conversations with scientists. I ended up being at a neuroscience table because that's my background, and had some very interesting conversations with students. And I asked them, if I had to take something back, like what would that be? If I had to talk to other societies that were not focused on minoritized scientists. And they told me a lot, but a couple of things that resonated with me that I'll share as lessons learned are that mentees need mentors that they can identify with. They said to me that oftentimes they find mentors, but they feel that they can grow and be in a safe space with mentees, with mentors that they can identify with. So be that gender, story, life lesson, whatever, but that is one thing that resonated. Another thing was that many of them had struggled with dropping out of their terminal degrees. And I asked why, and they said lack of belonging. So to me, that is one big lesson learned to bring back to this group, is that lack of belonging often causes minoritized students to drop out of terminal degrees, which makes this desire to create these ideal scientific environments much more important to me. And then last, I would say, another very interesting conversation I had with two Indigenous students were that students struggling with how to be their authentic selves and students struggling with academic challenges do not want to show their vulnerability because it is often used against them. So to me, that all comes back to the theme of actually building community and building an authentic, safe space where students can actually thrive. That's it for me, James.
No, absolutely, and those are all great points. And I had many similar conversations with folks, talking about, the difficulties that they'd encountered, and I had one really great chat, with a student who was running a mentorship program, and it was all about, emphasizing the non-traditional pathways that one can find into a scientific career that sometimes it involves time away. It's not it doesn't have to be a straight shot from an undergraduate career into a PhD and a assistant professorship and so on. It was really fascinating to see a lot of people getting together and collaborating and talking about the different ways that one can reach their ultimate goals as scientists and researchers. Why don't we throw it open now and talk about some suggested strategies for MSO involvement and ways that this can actually be implemented and get this done. And this, of course, will only be the beginning of the conversation, but we can brainstorm and throw out some ideas and begin the chat. Would anyone like to jump in here? Scott, you've got your mic. Yeah, you're unmuted, so it's you.
I can certainly offer, just building on James, what you just, or what everyone has just said, that last bit about kids dropping out because they feel a lack of belonging. We need collectively, we need to work on that. We need to build community, and whatever we can do to build a safe space. And in that, along with that, there might be maybe a very, an opportunity to provide a professional development session at SACNAS or other meetings and talk about the different options as well, right? Illuminating those non-traditional career pathways, right? I think all of us at AIBS here have kind of that are on this call right now have followed a non-traditional career path in science. And so I think that's important to share kind of our stories, and the other folks that are on the call here at different member society organizations. I'd love to hear if that resonates with you, something that we can do collectively, and AIBS will certainly can organize it or help organize it. And then I guess I'll be quiet now. I want other people to speak. I have a couple other ideas, but I'll wait.
Yeah, I really like that idea, Scott. And in general, SACNAS meeting organizers, they did a really good job of creating this safe environment, particularly for students and early career folks. And it would be worth looking into their sort of best practices, their code of conduct, their student resources. There was a lot of information that was on their website and that was shared with everybody prior to the meeting. And really, it might be worth incorporating parts of those best practices and meeting protocols and such, and replicating them or amplifying them, sharing it more broadly with other societies. I'm sure there are parts of that that can be easily incorporated into other scientific meetings as well.
Cliff?
Go ahead. I was gonna say I would add one just practical strategy that resonated with me as I went to a lot of sessions and talks is the networking that's available. So this is just something that I thought about that's very practical for our member organizations to do in their own scientific meetings, that almost every talk or every session ended with networking. So the speakers, those who started the sessions or who came into the sessions would come down and actually just take questions from the students or go around to student tables and sit down and have kind of some really meaningful conversations with students. So as our member societies build their own communities, one good thing is to actually make this an expectation of your speakers and your session leaders that, hey, we expect you to be approachable and to participate in networking. And networking to young kids really just means sometimes giving advice, but it might also mean expanding your network to support them and help them build community. So that's, to me, is something very practical that our member organizations could build into their own scientific conferences. And then something else very practical that they did at SACNAS, and I've seen done in other conferences, is to put together like receptions or small get-togethers for unique groups. And so when you're a scientist and you're at a major conference, it's very hard sometimes to find those that are very similar to you. So it could be, people who are working on a certain topic, or people from certain racial, ethnic, or gender identities, just being able to pull them together to see that there is something that could foster community is also just a really basic strategy for member organizations to use.
If I may, I would just add that sessions would be very welcome, and it's a good way to get acquainted without getting a booth. A booth is worthwhile for institutions and organizations because the students go. They will talk to people at different tables about how they get in, what the requirements are. They have a lot of good swag for the students to take home. It's grown from a single booth to a university from departments and schools all lined up along a row. And there are a number of organizations, and the organizations affiliated with this group would be very welcome because there's a lot of interest in those topics, but we have not had good representation there. So that would be welcome. Then when you get really enthusiastic, you could buy a booth. That helps the society continue the meeting, and it introduces you actually to a lot more students because they just flow through at all times. And there are times when the exhibit hall is closed so that people who are exhibiting can take part in the sessions.
Cliff?
Yeah, I think with the positive experience that AIBS has just had, perhaps some of that can be captured to encourage or even challenge our member societies to engage, and in particular, asking them to experiment, to expand ideas, to reach students, to be creative in their messaging, whether it's at the booths, creative in their handouts, looking for ways to make the connections. A different kind of approach would be for them to support activities in their domain. For example, what if they were to present an award for a poster or a presentation in their area, which would give attendance at the disciplinary meeting. So things like that could make an impact because they're seen by others, and it promotes a self-efficacy among the students that are in those areas. One of the benefits of SACNAS is that it's multidisciplinary. If we could encourage our member societies to think of how to use that, how to leverage that in tangible ways.
Thank you, Cliff. That actually resonated with something that that I experienced in relation to the multidisciplinarity was the breakout session similar to the one that Dejoy mentioned. At one point we had one after a session that involved mentoring, and at my table it was just a bunch of people getting together and talking about how to build a good multidisciplinary cohort. And I don't think you would find many other opportunities to have those types of conversations necessarily at something focused on a more narrow scientific lens. But in this case, it was everybody's working on mentorship programs, and they were all in the same place, and they all had the same priorities and concerns. So you kind of got a critical mass of attention on that issue, and the networking was incredible. But I'll throw it open to others or questions, which can be in the chat, or you can just raise your hand virtually or physically, whatever works.
Maybe I can fill in with another or jump in with another idea. So we heard from a lot of speakers, like a lot of the plenary speakers and as well as session speakers, that SACNAS was a really transformational experience for them in their career, especially early in their career. It was the first time that they found others like them, met and heard from role models that looked like them, and experienced the sense of belongingness in science. So societies could look into supporting more students to attend SACNAS and other similar conferences to really benefit from this unique opportunity. It's a really nice opportunity for networking, as a lot of us have pointed out already. So this is and a good place to find mentors, which is really important if you're looking to retain and retain more scientists in STEM, and also grow the pipeline. So I think if there are opportunities for either MSOs to support individual students, or there might be avenues for AIBS members to come together and potentially fundraise together to support multiple student awards, travel awards to send students to SACNAS, or other meetings too. But we're talking about SACNAS, so I'm sort of in that mindset right now. But yeah, I mean, I think that might be an interesting idea to explore if there's interest. So I'd be curious to hear from some of our member representatives if that's something that they would be interested in.
Member representatives?
No, I don't know what the prize for an abstract is. It was $200 not so long ago. And the student travel awards are generally capped at $1,000, except unless you're coming from Guam or Hawaii.
Yeah, and just building really quickly on the idea of getting students to travel to the meeting. I think there could be value for that, for the students, all of course, in attending the meeting, but also then bringing back the things that they've experienced and learned to their the societies that might be sending them, to have these types of interactions as well. And I think that would have a positive impact on their careers. Not only with SACNAS and that community, but also then elevating them within the societies from which they've been sent as well.
A lot of the students go back, and one of the things that has happened over the last, I don't know, 10 years has been chapters at universities, so that the students, and these are usually started by students, occasionally by faculty, and of course they come and go as students come and go, but now there are a number of very strong chapters that provide local support for Hispanic, Native Americans, and allies at their university. And there's always a prize for the best beginning chapter and a prize for the chapter that's accomplished the most over the year. And these ceremonies are part of the general sessions. I mean, they are plenaries where everybody is invited to come and see who these people are.
Yeah, I recall some of the more enlivening talks that I saw where it was at that award ceremony for the for the various chapters. There were great conversations and from some very enthusiastic people. It was really cool to see. Any questions or thoughts, Scott?
No, I was just going to agree with you. That was like that celebratory atmosphere during the general session when they were giving the student chapter awards and recognizing the different chapters. That was a lot of fun to witness. That was great. And to your point, Lydia, I mean, it's not a heavy lift, right? The $200 for a poster award for a poster session, or $1,000 for a travel award. We're not talking about a lot of money. AIBS has the infrastructure to help fundraise for this, and we can put together information and push as long, we just want to gauge the interest of our MSOs, and we can put together some information and put it out in a more formal way so that we can maybe push in this area. And we can talk about this at the December board meeting, AIBS board meeting.
Absolutely. So the floor is open for any kind of final thoughts or ideas. This would be the last chance. Any questions? Okay, great. Well, I think we've surfaced a lot of good ideas and potential strategies moving forward. What we'll do is we will compile those and share those with the community, and see what we can do to build a collaboration moving forward. I think the ideas that we've discussed already, I think will be valuable. And I think that there's, of course, more work to be done. This is just an initial conversation. I would like to, of course, thank SACNAS again, for facilitating our being there and, making it very easy for me to record a podcast with some great people. I had a wonderful time and learned quite a bit. And Scott, you've unmuted yourself, so I'll hand it over to you.
I was just going to share, James, thank you so much for interviewing so many wonderful people at the SACNAS meeting and producing that podcast that I believe was released publicly this morning. Is that correct? At 8 a.m., 9 a.m.? So that I don't know if we shared that information in the chat here or elsewhere. I'm sure it'll go out to all of our MSOs, but that's a really, you did a great job of capturing kind of the essence of the SACNAS meeting. So thank you for that. And thank you to everyone for attending today.
Right, yeah. Thank you everyone for attending, and everyone was incredibly gracious with their time at the meeting. I appreciated that. Thanks all. There will be more to come, and you will hear from us in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.